Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another VMware Cloud webinar. Today, we have a pretty exciting one today. We're going to be talking about our VMware Cloud Provider Program, as well as some stuff around our Cloud Provider business unit. We have a couple special guests with us today, Daniel Paulszek and Jason Crandall. Just as a reminder for those in the Twitch or the Zoom, you are muted. Please put all questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to them as you come in, and we'll save a little bit of time at the end for questions as well. For those on Twitch, go ahead and post the questions in the chat, and we'll answer them again as we go through. So with that, I'll hand it over to Daniel to give himself a little bit of a brief introduction and to go ahead and start presenting on this exciting topic.
Sure. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate the time. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Daniel Paulszek. I'm part of the Cloud Provider Program at VMware. I'm based in Florida. Jason, do you want to do a quick intro before we get started?
Sure. Jason Crandall, Cloud Solution Engineer for VMware Cloud and AWS.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. So today we're going to have an open discussion. Jason and I are going to walk through a few slides, but the goal of today's conversation is to give everybody a context from a partner lens of what we're doing to enable our partners on bringing cloud solutions from VMware to a vision and strategy and execution, not just to our existing customers, but net new customers. So quick agenda, I'd like to start off with some interesting facts from our Cloud Provider Program. We'll talk about VCPP, or VMware Cloud Provider Program, in further detail, and our business unit. We'll then touch on some of the key solutions we have within our business unit, and then Jason's going to walk us through kind of the applicability for partners on the VMware Cloud on AWS and some partner examples that we see. We'll wrap up with that engagement model, and again, feel free to ask any questions on the Q&A chat. So let's start off with some interesting stats. First off, the first thing I want to mention is that within our cloud provider program, we have globally about 4,500 cloud service providers. I have an extra zero there. That is a mistake, but we right now have about 4,500 cloud service providers, and this continues to grow.
Daniel, you're just setting yourself some goals here to get to 45,000.
That's right,
so,
exactly.
Yes.
So 45,000. That's what we'll accomplish, right, Matt? So, but from a growth perspective, what we're seeing is additional providers continue to grow, but also the ability for them to gain net new customers, but also net new workloads. And you'll see in my next slide what the collective model is here. This represents over 150,000 customers globally. So if we look at this from a different perspective, and we collectively look at all the virtual machines and workloads under control by our VMware cloud providers, this represents about 10 million workloads under management globally, which if we look at those latest numbers, that's about the fourth largest mega cloud in total. So we're talking about a lot of workloads under these cloud providers. So that's one really interesting view, is that when we look at the cloud provider program, a lot of people don't realize the size and the sheer scale of this from a global perspective. So let's talk about the cloud provider program and our CPSBU, which is our cloud provider software business unit, in greater detail. So our goal at the end of the day within the cloud provider program is to enable our partners to provide differentiated solutions using VMware technologies. This can be coming from their own data centers, providing managed services inside of a customer's data center, using SaaS services or asset light, which we'll talk about in greater detail, but become this strategic advisor and a partner to their customers on enabling this transition across a multi-cloud platform. So the cloud provider program, and if we peel this back, this used to be called the VMware Service Provider Program, and then for a time it was called the VCloud Air Network, which presented some confusion, but today it's called VCPP. This is a consumption-based model for our providers, and what they do is they consume VMware solutions on a usage basis. In essence, this allows them to provide managed services and provide services directly to their end customers on an ongoing basis. At the end of the day, providers are trying to provide these cloud services, managed services, or hosting solutions using VMware solutions. VMware as a whole, what we do is we create, and we also work with our other business units to create multi-tenant or provider-based architectures and help these managed service providers on providing these services. We'll talk about our business unit here shortly. But at the end of the day, we're collaborating with our providers, helping them go to market with some of these solutions, operationalizing them. It could be in their data centers or using a hybrid offering like VMware Cloud on AWS. So when we look at our, and I'm going to build this out, our cloud provider software business unit, our goal from our cloud provider software business unit is, start off in the middle. We're developing products and solutions for our cloud providers. We'll talk about 3 of our key solutions today. We have several, and we also align with our other business units that provide solutions directly to enterprise customers. And then we provide maybe a value add on top of that. But the end goal here is to help our partners and our cloud service providers manage their business and provide a route to market. At the end of the day, this could be using our solutions in their own data center, or they're using VMware Cloud Services such as the VMC solution, and then using our cloud services platform and marketplace. So when we look at an on-prem or a provider managed model, this is what we encapsulate under our cloud provider platform. And when cloud providers actually have a service portfolio, what they're looking at is what kind of services can I provide? And these are our VMware solutions that we're providing to our cloud providers that are providing a certain core capability or a service such as DR as a service, or a deployment of a net new multi-tenant architecture, or providing extensibility or chargeback or showback functionality. We have distinct solutions inside of our business unit that enables the cloud provider to provide this from a go-to-market strategy. Moreover, when we look at this from a asset light or cross cloud services, the end goal here is to provide a simplified and unified way where a cloud provider can then consume services from VMware in a multi-tenant fashion. And Jason's going to touch on this when we talk about Cloud Provider Hub and how that encapsulates what our partners are doing and how they're providing VMware Cloud services to end customers within the overall model. So let's talk about 3 key solutions. Again, we have several different solutions we can talk about, but in interest of time, we're going to cover just 3. VCloud Director, VCloud Availability, and the Cloud Provider Hub. So I'm going to go to the next slide, and we'll talk about VCloud Director. So many of you may already be aware of VCD as a solution that has had its evolution. This is a solution the cloud provider software business unit owns and has been heavily investing in. At the end of the day, what VCD provides is a multi-tenant service delivery platform. And what I mean by that is, out of the box, we're able to provide cloud services from a provider environment and provide this to a distinct tenant or organization. Recently, VCloud Director has evolved into providing dedicated private cloud, continues to provide virtual data center constructs, but also a lifecycle automation. We introduced plugin management, so we have integration with data protection providers such as EMC Data Protection or Cohesity, for example. At the end of the day, what we're trying to provide here is a way for our providers to differentiate and provide a cloud services from one of their data centers or many of their data centers and provide a very intuitive look and feel to the overall solution.
But Daniel, I thought we end of life this product 5 years ago.
Yeah, we used to get that a lot, but VCD is owned by the Cloud Provider Software Business Unit, is what we classify as a restricted product, meaning that it's only for our VCPP providers. And so this has been something that I like to say is a kind of a hidden secret inside of VMware, where our cloud providers are taking full advantage of this and expanding their offerings using a lot of the net new investment we put into it.
And I couldn't be happier. I love this product.
So next up, VCloud Availability. So this is a newer platform that we built that really focuses around self-service disaster recovery in a multi-tenant world. What we're doing here is we're integrating this with VCloud Director environments and vSphere resources and providing the ability for tenants or providers to seamlessly migrate or protect workloads between multiple clouds. In essence, VCloud Availability allows a provider to offer DRaaS as a service to their VCD-backed environments from a replicate from the tenant on-prem vCenter to the VCD environment between VCloud Director environments, and then we can also replicate from the VCD environment back to the vCenter. All of this is managed through a plugin. We can log into the user interface using VCloud Director and provide self-service ability between the tenant or provider. A lot of the questions we get on this VCloud Availability 3.0, it's a fairly new product, this is our go-to-market strategy along with HCX. HCX is heavily used, obviously, in the VMC world. What we see with a lot of our providers is this complements HCX, where HCX has a lot of strong capabilities around hybridity and bulk migration. This allows you to utilize a VCD-based environment and integrate directly into a VCloud Director solution.
So just another question there, Daniel, if I could.
Yeah.
So I know in VMware Cloud, the HCX and DR capabilities are separate. Is that also true in this vCloud Availability, or does it leverage the HCX's DR capability?
No, this is completely separate. So great question, Matt. What happens on the back end, the provider would instantiate, bring up the appliances required for VCD. It's a single deployment for that VCloud Director site. And then the tenant would install a single virtual appliance in their vCenter and then connect securely to the VCloud Director environment.
Okay, so this is not using the HCX's DR as well.
That is correct.
Just to be clear, we get a lot of questions around that in the VMware Cloud space, so I thought it would be good. This is also the best acronym I think I've ever seen for one of our services. The VCAV, I like that.
VCAV. All right. So next up is Cloud Provider Hub, and I'm going to pass it over to Jason, and he's going to walk us through some of the Cloud Provider Hub functionality.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so let's talk about the Cloud Provider Hub a little bit and what this means for you. So specifically, when we talk about VMware Cloud and AWS, and we talk about the SaaS portfolio that VMware is developing, the Cloud Provider Hub is how our partners are able to offer those services to you as an end customer. And what this really opens up is this gives them the ability to have that construct to help you with services, be it the SaaS portfolio from VMware Cloud and AWS, and ultimately to also help with the different public cloud offerings. Because if you're using a partner, odds are you're using them because they are assisting with more than just your VMware environment. Maybe they're helping with a digital transformation, helping you, consume, be it Azure, be it AWS, whatever it is. The idea of the Cloud Provider Hub, though, is that this is an additional construct that is above and beyond what you guys see today when you log into the VMware Cloud and AWS portal. And I'll kind of show you some of the slides for it so you get a construct idea of what it looks like. But the idea is that for our partners, this also gives them the ability to have an asset light management infrastructure. Because as Daniel talked about, today our partners oftentimes are running a private cloud environment with VCloud Director and VCloud Availability, and they're doing all of those internally, but then they also want to be able to fulfill your needs. and maybe you have a need for a data center on the West Coast where they're not at today, and they can utilize their on-prem private cloud as well as VMware Cloud and AWS to kind of augment their offering. And ultimately, they will be able to offer a VCloud Director construct that exists both in their private cloud and in the hyperscalers like VMware Cloud and AWS. See if I can click on the next slide. I cannot. All right. So from a construct, what it looks like, what the Cloud Provider Hub is, it is the master organization overlay that allows them the operational control and consistency of all of their tenants downstream. So you as a customer would be tenant A, you're completely isolated from all the other tenants, and this just gives the overarching framework to be able to govern and manage all their different customers. So what it looks like, for those that have been inside VMware Cloud and AWS, you've seen that this looks very similar to the portal you're familiar with, except for different tabs. And what we get here is from a Cloud Provider Hub standpoint, they have a services, which is VMware Cloud and AWS, as well as the other services that are going to be coming. Cloud Health is the next one, and then ultimately the entire SaaS portfolio. And then the first tab we have is tenant management. This gives them the ability to create a tenant for you, name who the admin's going to be able to give you downstream privileges, and we can provision this within a few seconds and then begin provisioning an SDDC the same as you would direct. Now, one of the big differences that we're going to talk about is the billing framework. Today, when you purchase VMware Cloud and AWS, you likely pre-purchased SPP credits that you burn down. In a MSP construct, the partner manages three core fundamental things that are different. They own frontline support. So when you go through a managed service provider for VMware Cloud and AWS, you then go to them for support rather than coming direct to VMware. They handle the relationship between VMware for you, and you work with them directly, which this can be beneficial if you already come to them for all things cloud, and you're already going to them for your AWS services. It allows you to continue to go to the same people. They also handle billing, which means that you don't pre-purchase SPP credits. You just get a PO billing or your term billing from your partner head that you always have. And we've got a few partners that have the ability to offer monthly payment options. So when you do a 1 or 3 year subscription with VMware Cloud and AWS, it doesn't truly move it into an OpEx model because you're still prepaying for that 1 or 3 year reservation. And so it still leaves it a little bit of a CapEx model, whereas with monthly payment options, it allows it to truly move into an OpEx framework. And we've got a few partners that offer that.
I think just a funny thing I noticed on the slide. I think Coke has a spy inside of Pepsi.
Oh yeah, that's what happens when you got demo slides. That's funny. Yeah, go ahead. Good catch there. Go ahead and click to the next slide. Thank you. All right. Oh, I've got them out of order. So this is pretty straightforward. Services that we provision, being able to open and manage VMware Cloud and AWS. Go ahead and click it next. Now, from a managed tenant access standpoint, this is one of the big things that's different, is that when you're running VMware Cloud and AWS, you're automatically have the ability to set yourself as an admin or a read only. Inside the managed service provider program, they have the ability to delineate control. So if you're looking for a partner that's going to be a heavily managed environment, they're going to manage your guest OS, they're going to manage provisioning, they're going to handle all that for you and kind of be a help desk for your internal employees. You have the ability to have no access in here. So that you're just RDPing into the host if doing anything. Otherwise, you're just using your services, or we can give just vCenter access, or we have the ability to give full access and granular control like you would in a normal SDDC. Now, understand too that some of these slides are mock-ups for some of the RBAC controls that we're developing. So, for instance, when you go into your portal, you know that all these permissions that you see here aren't things that are available today. So just want to note that some of these are mock-ups for controls that are coming.
So
question?
Jason, question. Yeah. So this gives a lot of our providers the ability to provide more distinct granular control for vSphere management and functionality within any of our cloud services. Is that correct?
Yes, it allows you to really delineate what level of control the customers need. And the important thing to note is that it can be as little or as restricted as we need it to be for customers that want to be hands off. They don't want people getting in there and being able to make changes. We can set it so that it's fully managed by the partner. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you've still got your full talent in-house, you're still fully managing this thing, but maybe you have a relationship where with a partner where it's significantly easier to get through billing if the billing is coming from a partner of record that you already work with, or you want to use them for your support mechanism because you're already using them for Azure and AWS, or when those times make sense, we can still delineate the full level of control that you have when you purchase it direct through an MSP. You don't necessarily give up any control just because you want to go through a partner. On the same note, we do have the ability to fully restrict it for those opportunities that call for it.
Cool. And you have control of my slides, so you should be able to move it forward. So.
Oh, do I? Let me try.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. Outstanding. All right. So let me go past this. And from a support standpoint, just to let you know what it looks like from support, they still have chat support. So when you move into this partner model, that is one of the things that you give up because you work directly with the partner. That means that only the partner has chat support. So that would then be, you would not see that any longer in the portal because you would always go to your partner. From their perspective, they have full chat support and they have a support center where they manage and create all the different support requests for all their downstream tenants. And this allows their NOC that they're running to be able to see any issues that they've got running and allow them to control any kind of support issues they may have across the organization for you. Again, we're talking about trying to build that framework when you're using a partner to be able to augment your support use cases for, beyond just VMware Cloud and AWS. Oftentimes what you're using these guys for are because they are already your support arm for native AWS as well. And then from a billing standpoint, there is a billing and subscription tab that allows you to pull consumption usage. This is similar to the billing and subscription tab that you would see in your own personal portal. However, from the Cloud Provider Hub management construct, they can then see downstream to all of their tenants and they can pull all that information. So if you want to see, what your consumption is for log intelligence for a month, they can pull that. And then ultimately, once, Network Insight and some of those other SaaS offerings are built in, they'd be able to see them here as well. So what's the applicability? Oh, sorry, is there a question, Daniel?
No.
Cool. So what's the applicability for partners? Go ahead if you want to talk about this slide, Dan.
So this is a slide from AWS, and what I found very insightful is, VMware Cloud and AWS provides this extremely streamlined and highly optimized platform that we go to market and you guys consume today. And what we're doing from a terms of service is the ability to provide infrastructure directly to you and making sure that we're providing the availability and the capability of a software-defined data center with VMware Cloud and AWS. When we look above that and we look at these green boxes, one of the distinct items that we're seeing a lot of our cloud providers operationalize, and what I mean by that, provide value-added services on running at specific applications, doing the operating system management, looking at your application inventory or dependencies, and still providing those day two operations associated with this. At the end of the day, this is something the end customer has to manage with any type of solution like this. But what we're seeing is the ability to productize and operationalize these, and also ensure that we're providing this consistent operations between maybe a VMware Cloud and AWS to a on-prem data center to another, maybe a cloud provider, and providing that consistent operating model across any of these different clouds.
Daniel, I'd like to pop in here a little bit as well. So I think that to a degree you're kind of underselling that. So this is an incredibly good space for partners to be in, and is also we get this quite a bit in the VMware Cloud side of the house that, for VMware Cloud, we manage the infrastructure, but there is, as shown in this slide, a whole bunch of layers above that customers can leverage partners to manage as well. So you can really kind of get out of the business of managing this all yourself, all the way to, the database level, for example, or the OS level or whatever, to just concentrate on what you're doing for a business as opposed to the nitty gritty bits.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that, thank you, Matt, for chiming in there. One of the things Jason and I see quite often, I think one of Jason's examples, we're going to talk about a couple partner examples, is we're seeing some partners that are going to market with VMC on AWS, but they also have native hyperscaler experience where they're able to look at your application model and decide what can be the best of both worlds. If I run this natively, let's say in AWS, in this availability zone, while I have a VMC SDDC stack over here, I'm able to coexist and define a really great total cost of ownership model here. And that's where we're seeing a lot of these partners excel, or cloud providers, and then providing managed services around that.
Excellent. And one of the things too that we'll talk about is, we touched upon VCloud Director, but one of the big gains that will be gained from VCloud Director from a partner standpoint as well is when you have those use cases where you don't need 3 full hosts of capacity inside VMC, but maybe you still have a use case. With their multi-tenancy offering that's coming, that'll open up some of the doors for that as well. So maybe today you've got an SDDC that you manage because you're in Virginia and you've got enough use case, but you've got a development team in India, and we need to be able to spin up, 50 VMs that we're supporting that need to be closer to the end customer. That's going to be an area of opportunity for our partners as well, being able to carve up SDDCs that they'll be able to do through vCloud Director. And that'll be an offering for our managed service providers ultimately.
Great.
All right. So from a MSP support model, I've talked about it a little bit, but it is important to know that the MSP owns the terms of support, they own the billing, and they own the frontline support. So when you go through a partner, that is the frontline for everything. They help with, any managed services, the guest OS they're working with. They help set up your network connectivity, HCX, firewall policies, etc. And then if they have a tier 2 issue or something going on with ESX, vCenter updates, etc., that all goes to VMware. And then if it's, a hardware issue, whatever else, VMware handles that and triages with Amazon. The important thing to know is that you as a customer would always go straight to the partner, and that would be your one stop. Same as today, when you're going direct through VMware, you come direct to VMware. VMware's never going to, sling you over to Amazon if it's an issue with the hardware. It's the same thing, just essentially one layer of abstraction's been added to the equation. Now, so what do some of these solutions look like? Dan and I went through and we picked some of these customers some of these partners we have that today are offering different solutions. So provider one, they're running dedicated VMware Cloud and AWS instances as managed service, and then they offer AWS services to complement their public cloud offering. This is extremely useful to be able to help utilize OpEx and move into a beneficial partnership in which, as we talked about, letting you guys focus on the applications themselves and what are making money for the business and not necessarily running the day-to-day operations of the environment. And with this, we also look at the capability to help move things where they make the most sense. So maybe we have an environment where we're moving things into VMware Cloud and AWS, but that is just the beginning. We then also want to look at what makes sense to move and maybe refactor into a 12-factor application that runs inside native AWS. We have a lot of partners that help with that as well. And so they essentially manage both sides of the fence and then spend 6 months or a year helping develop that transition plan for some of those VMs that should be moved and broken apart. And this really opens the door because as a lot of you know, VMware Cloud and AWS helps you fulfill when you have an initiative that says we need to get X out of our data center and into a hyperscaler by set amount of time. VMware Cloud and AWS is the easy way to do that, and we get things over there, but there's a chance that there's a small percentage of that workload that would make more sense to be able to run in some of the broken out services options that are inside native AWS. And that's great, but that still takes time and effort, and that's where partners can really shine. Provider 2 is working on productizing VMware Cloud and AWS for a dedicated private cloud offering, and they offer traditional cloud native services, while this fills a void for VMware workloads. Same thing. This is exactly what I'm talking about, where we talk about migration services, a value add to help with VMC. So, getting things into VMware Cloud and AWS and operating your enterprise environment is just kind of step one. And then from there, we kind of look at what we're going to do in the future, what your developers want to do, how we can integrate it all. Because as you all know, one of the huge advantages of VMware Cloud and AWS is not just that it lives in a hyperscaler, but it's got that native connectivity through that ENI over into native AWS services. And then provider 3 is a VCPP partner that wants to expand, and they're looking to work on larger opportunities. But as we all know, if for those that have worked with partners, there are a lot of smaller partners out there that have extremely talented engineers and can do some amazing things, but maybe they're a smaller organization. Let's say they have 200 users. So for them, if they come to you and you're a larger organization with a large opportunity, that can pose significant risk for them to try to take on some of these opportunities. Because let's say that we're working on a server workload and they're going to need 50 hosts of compute to be able to handle the workload, and they work through it. They work in their private data center, they scale up multiple racks of additional equipment, they begin the process, and then the company shifts direction, says, we're not going to do that after all. That is a huge risk for a smaller partner to try to be able to absorb that and get additional customers in there as that hardware depreciates. And with VMware Cloud and AWS, we kind of alleviate that. And what that means is, for some of these smaller partners that have that raw talent in there, have those guys that know how to do those transformational opportunities and help you guys move into utilizing native AWS services, but maybe that partner was resistant to helping with that because of the risk. VMware Cloud and AWS really opens the door for them to be able to fully support you and not have that apprehension because of the risk that it might pose in a traditional private cloud. All right. So how to engage? Go ahead, Daniel.
Sure. Yeah. So if you leave, this meeting, with three things, the one thing I want to, what Jason and I want to instill is our VMware partners are thinking extremely creative and providing several value-added solutions to market using a lot of our technology, our cloud solutions from our business unit, our VMC on AWS, along with a lot of our ecosystem partners. So if you're looking or you need assistance, definitely talk to these VMware partners. I think that the ecosystem is fairly large. There's many different regional providers, global providers that are really doing interesting things and really helping with the transition to a multi-cloud environment. Next, expansion of VMware Cloud Services. Expect much more from us, especially even from the cloud provider side. We're taking a lot of these VMware Cloud Services that are going natively to our direct customers, and we're going to be doing some interesting things on, how to our providers are going to utilize that, and also go to market with their current data centers and what they're doing today, but also our cloud services. And at the end of the day, it's a customer choice, right? You have the flexibility to say, here's what I want to do, here's what I'm looking for. And a partner or provider has this flexibility to say, this is what I can do for you, Mr. Customer, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, and here's how we can actually work together on this. And that is all we have. Matt, I'm going to open it up for any type of Q&A. Jason and I are here, answer any questions that we may have.
Sure. So again, just a reminder for anybody that's in the Zoom call, you can put your questions in the Q&A box or on Twitch. I'll start off with one that we talked a little bit briefly before we started the webinar, and I think it bears some mentioning. And I know this is a VMware Cloud webinar, but the hot news of the Azure announcement, which is, I guess, more into your guys' field than it is into ours. Do you have any comments around that?
I'll go first, and Jason, if you have any comments. I think it really boils down to customer choice, right? We as a whole at VMware want to provide our customers with choice of how they want to go to market with a solution, right? And working with Microsoft, I think, really defines how we're meeting that goal on that. And some of our cloud providers are working very closely with Microsoft on providing a solution. that runs on Azure, right? So I think that at the end of the day, it's great for all of us because this is another route to market that shows how interesting solutions are being built by our partners and providers.
Yeah, what I would add on to that, though, one thing to keep in mind is that when it comes to naming, VMware Cloud On designates it's a service that's being operated, run, and managed by VMware. So VMware Cloud on AWS, VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, these are services in which our engineering efforts are directly involved in operating and managing that stack. And so when we look at Azure VMware Solutions, it's specifically called Azure VMware Solutions, and it's being supported and operated by some of our VCPP partners, initially Virtual Stream and Cloud Simple. So it's something to keep in mind that it is a heavy investment in Azure, and it's neat to see what we're developing there, but it's a situation that is being run by our partners. They've been developing it. VMware has been involved, but it's not being operated by VMware. And so as we see developments like that continue to proliferate in the ecosystem as far as what we're doing with partners, keep in mind that from a naming perspective, when you see VMware Cloud On, that's what designates it's a service being operated and run by VMware. And then when you see something like Azure VMware Solutions, that's a collaborative approach that's fully utilizing our partners to help bring that to market.
No, I think that's an excellent clarification, and like I said, that's something that comes up often to us. But I guess the main point in touching upon like what Daniel said is, this is just another option for that fluidity of taking resources from on-prem to VMware Cloud AWS to Azure to another partner to wherever, with essentially never modifying the virtual machine when you do it.
Absolutely. It's a huge opportunity, especially for those, because everyone knows that, when you do an ELA with Microsoft, oftentimes there's a big bank of credits for Azure that were included. And, it's a tough situation, right? Because maybe Azure wasn't really what you were looking at supporting. However, your leadership says you've got all these free credits. What are you going to do to consume them? Because it's, kind of bad faith not to find a way to consume them. So seeing, Azure VMware Solutions come about opens up the door for a way to be able to consume those credits in a way that makes sense for your company without kind of being shoved into using some of the portfolio that Azure offers if that wasn't what you were looking for.
Solid point, Jason. Okay. Is there any questions from the audience?
I don't see any here.
Okay.
So I guess we can just end up calling it there. If anybody has any follow-up questions on the Twitch stream, is Daniel's Twitter account. It's just at the Paulszek and or at VCloud Matt. I don't know, Jason, if you have a Twitter you want to mention now as well, or.
I don't have the online presence that Daniel has. But
oh, jeez. Well, there's only one way to start.
Right.
So you could tweet at either one of us if you have any follow-up questions. This video will be put up on YouTube, so you could leave a comment on YouTube if you have any questions, or email us at cloudcs@vmware.com. I'd like to thank very much Daniel and Jason for coming on and talking about this very valuable solution that I think, our partners are a very important part of our ecosystem, and I think it's very, very important to highlight the services that they can bring, even on top of VMware Cloud and AWS or in their own data centers or Azure, as we talked about, to really bring value both to themselves, to their customers. I always try to look at it as so I came from a partner, so I'm probably a little bit biased in this as well, but we really do have some very good win-win-win solutions where the customer wins, the partner wins, and VMware wins. And I think that that's very important. And these guys are working extremely hard on making that the reality that it is. So I thank you guys for coming in and highlighting that program and how invested we are into seeing our partners and our customers succeed. So with that, just a reminder, we will have our regular office hours for APJ on Thursday. Next week, we're going to have our regular office hours for Americas, and then we're going to have a What's New session that I'll be putting on as our next webinar. And then we have Oracle on VMware Cloud and AWS as our webinar beyond that. So we have quite a full agenda coming up here in the future. Again, we're always open to suggestions for anything that anybody wants to see in future webinars. We were looking at getting some Horizon stuff as well, as we know that that's picking up. So lots and lots of things there. Before I forget, I'll launch the polling for those that are still around, because I always forget to do that. But again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and their time. I'd like to thank Daniel and Jason again for their time and presentation, and I look forward to chatting with everybody in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody.